weather season forecast. And so in today's video, that's what we're going to be discussing. And I'm going to give you the reasons why. So here we have our sea surface temperature anomaly. So the two reliable things that I'm going to look at for today's severe weather forecast for the spring, we're going to split it up into the different months. So the severe weather forecast is going to be based around the sea surface temperature, obviously here, and then we have the ENSO, which is just kind of like the jet stream pattern essentially. So we're going to be taking a look at how that will affect our severe weather season. So when we scroll down to the Gulf of America, we have, let's see, what is this? Let's see what's the different things. So we have this. We have the Gulf of America sea surface temperature anomalies. This is something we're going to be keeping a very close eye on as the spring enters. We have, 70 sea surface temperature anomalies, even some areas down here in the 80s of degrees Fahrenheit. Now, this is measured in Celsius, so I just had to do some quick research real quick to figure out what these temperatures were. And we have maybe 60s or so in these areas. Temperature anomalies. Now, this is, I would have to say, these relatively warm for early February, as we have the water kind of flowing up this way, the warmer water flowing. So I'm going to show you something interesting on that in just a second. But as you can see, closer to the shore, there's very cold water temperatures. However, those are going to quickly warm up as the spring moves on, as the air temperature, because these shallower waters are more easily influenced by the air temperature, and that's why the deeper waters are not as easily influenced as these cold temperatures. And in fact, they're even being influenced by warmer temperatures to an extent. So this is what we're going to look at here. It's kind of like a model run, but for ocean temperatures. You can kind of see this is like current, I believe. So this is the current temperatures. We have 70s and 80s temperatures flowing northward here. And then we have 70s temperatures reaching very far northward into the Gulf. So here's what we're going to do. So as this moves along, we're going to say we're going to move on to tomorrow. You can kind of see how it kind of like the water kind of moves around. So we're just going to go all the way to the end on the 7th. And as you can see, this warmer water isn't going away anytime soon. It's actually going further north. And so this warm water is probably going to be here consistently. So that's what increases my confidence in a Dixie Alley return this year. As we move on, there's also one thing I also forgot to look at. Okay, there's an important thing that I need to look at as well, and that is the North Atlantic and pretty much the Atlantic sea surface temperatures. So the U.S. Atlantic sea surface temperatures. As you can see, we have very warm waters along the Atlantic as well. Very warm waters to a very far northward extent here. As you can see, obviously along the tropics is going to be this warm, but it's a little bit, I would say this may be warmer than average. I have a feeling that this is warmer than average. I haven't looked at the averages, but I believe this is warmer than average. So that's something interesting to keep in mind as well. Let's see. So we have the ENSO probabilities. Right now we're in a weaker La Nina, even into a neutral. We have a probability of maybe getting a little bit into a stronger La Nina. Wait, maybe this is, let's see. This was actually September, October, November. So this is us currently. We're in a neutral ENSO. And that neutral ENSO is expected to heighten very much in probability, peaking around April, which is generally the main severe weather season for most areas. March through May, and then even in the plains, we might see the severe weather season more like April through June. Some areas it's more like April through July or something like that, but generally March through May is a good rule of thumb. It varies some through regions, but a good rule of thumb is March through May. So, in our peak severe weather season, we will have a very high probability, above 70%. As you can see, this line right here is above 70. So above 70% of neutral ENSO. So we're going to see how that impacts our temperatures here in the United States. So neutral ENSO temperature anomalies. These are the winter months. And then as we begin into spring, obviously 2 of these are winter months, so that's going to be influenced a little bit. But you can kind of see a little bit of a push north of the warmer temperatures. February through April, so these warmer temperatures are pushing north. And also the precipitation anomalies. It starts off a little bit drier, but then it kind of pushes north more. Same thing with the temperatures, so this kind of aligns. This would make for more severe weather events. Alright, so here we have my March severe weather outlook and tornado season outlook. I do have a lot of the eastern United States in a slightly above average. Now, this is explained by the above average Gulf of Mexico temperatures going well into, this would allow for any severe weather setup with a warm front over top. This would allow for a lot of that moisture to funnel very far northward. And as well as the enhanced Atlantic moisture and temperatures. And then I do have a well below average, or slightly below average for most of the U.S., or western U.S., because of just I looked at the analog years and just a lack of anything out there. I believe in March only 3 tornadoes occurred in 3 analog years that I looked at. So, and then we have a moderately above for a lot of Dixie Alley, pretty much Dixie Alley, and then some of the Great Lakes areas in the Midwest. And then a well above average for the Dixie Alley area. So I do believe Dixie Alley is going to be making a comeback this year, unfortunately. It's looking very likely with these Gulf of Mexico temperatures and everything just aligning right. And then we kind of shift a little bit west here. We only have a moderately below compared to the well below I had there. And then the focus starts to shift towards the plains and the Gulf Coast, as well as the Northeast too. So well above for these areas and then moderately above for these areas. So a lot of Dixie Alley really is the focus of this forecast. And then we have my forecast for May, which really the severe weather starts to expand a ton. By the way, I made these images with felt maps, and then they use Open Street Maps and Mapbox for their things. So slightly above for a lot of the United States for severe weather, actually. It may look a bit of a weirdly, oddly large area, but this is just generally what I saw in these analog years, as well as a well above area I saw for areas in the Northeast. Even though it wasn't a ton of tornadoes according to some other area standards like the Southeast or the Plains, it was well above for the Northeastern standards. And then I saw well above for the plains as the focus starts to shift from here in the Gulf Coast to the plains, in your casual or average tornado alley, I guess you'd say, or usual. And then the Pacific Northwest and the Desert Southwest looking like a below average. So that's my 2026 tornado season and severe weather season forecast.